October 7th, and it's getting more and more demeaned. They're demeaning it. I have people now telling me they don't think the attack ever happened. And take a look. Even Schumer has become like a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer, Jewish, always strong for Israel. He's become like a Palestinian.
He called for elections in the middle of a war.
Yeah. You know, Israel was the most powerful lobby in the country 15 years ago. Today, between Tlaib and AOC and all of these people, what they're doing, Israel, they don't have the backing that they once had.
You'll give it to them.
Yeah, I'm good.
What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm going to do a reaction and a review of a clip from a Sean Hannity interview with President Donald Trump, or former soon-to-be President Donald Trump, most likely, about the Israel situation. Obviously, the Israel-Palestine war is one of the major conflicts in the world that America is invested in and involved in. So he talked about it, but he mentioned the Israel lobby, and he vowed to make it even more powerful than it already is. We're going to review some of those clips, and I think I have some very interesting information about that. So I hope you enjoy this episode, regardless of what side of the spectrum or political aisle you're on. I hope you consider what I'm saying, because I'm going to make some interesting points that I think most news channels are overlooking and will never talk about. In fact, I believe that most of the media will never talk about this topic for the most part in general, although it's becoming more popular because it's becoming more obvious. So thank you for being here. Give me a thumbs up in the chat, and for the algorithm on the video, Dreamer a Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, folks? Someone said, what's my thoughts on the Tucker and Bannon interview? I have not listened to it yet, but I will probably do a second video later today about a different topic. I wanted to keep this one on topic and specifically about this. So maybe I'll talk about it at the end or later today in my second show. Let's get into this one. So I saw this clip on X or Twitter of the Sean Hannity Donald Trump interview, and I found it interesting enough to share with you guys. A lot of stuff was said. He compared people denying October 7th to people denying the Holocaust. He mentioned that Israel doesn't have a lot of power in Congress anymore, which is not true. And then also he said that Chuck Schumer is acting like a Palestinian, essentially. I just found it pretty fascinating, because I'm kind of bored of like the left versus right thing. Yeah, I get it. You know, Trump's better than Biden. Liberals don't know how to run a city. And I understand why people vote the way they vote. But when you get caught up in all of this partisan politics, you kind of miss what's really going on. And I believe that that's sort of how they never actually do anything for American citizens, through this kind of like Marvel plot that's going on. So when I find little cracks in the matrix and gems like this, I want to share it, because I find that I believe it's more important than the daily news that everybody's running circles around. So let's get into the interview. Here's the first clip. I broke it into 6 clips, and I have some other ones I want to share just to counter the narrative. So here is President Donald Trump talking to Sean Hannity about the Israel-Palestine war, in which President Trump has said multiple times, and he said in this interview, you know, they got to wrap it up, because Trump, you know, he's very good at PR. He knows how the media works. He realizes that the PR for Israel's bad, and the longer that they drag this out, or that it drags out, the worse it looks for, you know, everyone involved. So he's just like, yo, they got to end it very quickly. You know, he said this a few times now.
So, number one, they have to finish the job. Israel has to finish that job. They have to finish it quickly, strongly, and they have to get back to life again, because it's taking too long. They have to finish the job.
You're saying go in, win, and finish.
You gotta win. Gotta win. The attack on October 7th.
So, you know, Trump is obviously pro-Israel, but even he thinks like this is going on too long. You gotta like get back to how it was beforehand. I'll play another clip.
The attack on October 7th, and it's getting more and more demeaned. They're demeaning it. I have people now telling me they don't think the attack ever happened. And take a look. You watch the news reports.
I have the
where
50
people
minutes
that are
of video.
protesting. Sure, I know you do, and so do I. But here's the thing.
So Trump's saying, you know, I have people around me that they don't even believe that October 7th even happened. And Sean Hannity's like, what? I have clips of it. He probably has that documentary or whatever that they made to show people that it happened. And this next part's really interesting.
Here's the thing. You watch these people on television, and then just like you have Holocaust deniers also. They say the Holocaust never took. It's the exact same people. They're saying it never happened. AOC +3. You know, Israel was the most powerful lobby in the country 15 years ago. Today, between Tlaib and AOC and all of these people, what they're doing, Israel, they don't have the backing that they once had.
You'll give it to them.
Yeah, I'm good. But they don't have the backing. Even Schumer.
So I'm going to play a few clips real quick, but he started off and he said that October 7th denial is similar to Holocaust denial. And he said the same people denying the Holocaust are denying October 7th. I just wanted to play this clip because Trump tries to frame it as, it's AOC and Ilhan Omar, and these are the people that are doing it. First, I want to say this. Questioning certain things about October 7th, it doesn't mean you deny the entire event completely. I don't know who he's referring to, but I do want to play this clip of Charlie Kirk, who is super pro-Israel. He has probably made a living off of donors that are pro-Israel. I'm sure he's taken millions, or if not tens of millions of dollars of donor money for his organizations from people that dump money into it like they do the Republican Party. So everything in the conservative movement is pro-Israel. But in general, even Charlie Kirk questioned that event. And I want to play that clip again because, Trump is trying to make it sound like it's AOC and Ilhan Omar. And that's always what the right uses in order to push policy. They say, look over there. And then everyone looks and they're like, yeah, AOC sucks. But, even Charlie Kirk had questions about that event. I want to play him because I remember.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war.
So even Charlie Kirk, who's pro-Israel, who's probably gobbled up more, pro-Israel donor money than most people in Republican politics, even he was like, something doesn't sit right with me. I've talked to people that I'm pretty sure have Israeli citizenship, and even they were like, it just seems weird because anybody that knows Israel or has been to Israel or studied Israel, they know how good their intelligence is. They know how good their military is. They know, like Charlie said, it's like a fortress. So 6 hours and paragliders, even people that have Israeli citizenship are like, not all of them. I'm not saying everybody, but it's like, how did this happen? How did we let this happen? And here's Charlie Kirk's opinion that he said once, and haven't heard him say again because it probably wasn't the easiest thing to say. And I'm guessing he got a lot of flack about what he said here behind the scenes. I could almost guarantee it. So here's the second clip of him questioning how in the world this happened. He's not denying the fact that it did. He's just, questions, just like the left doesn't like questions. A lot of the right doesn't like questions as well. Let's look.
It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu is basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here. But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's decided.
So, that's what Charlie's saying. He's like, I'm not willing to say all this stuff because, I'm not saying it didn't happen or they knew, but now he has an emergency government that right before it happened, there were protests of people that noticed that they were basically subverting the Constitution of Israel and giving themselves power even before that. Now they have this emergency power. For me, it's like I noticed that Republicans and Democrats, but a lot of Republicans were passing these anti-Semitism speech laws and these BDS laws, and I was reading them, and it said, basically preventing certain companies and universities and, government contractors from protesting or boycotting Israel. And I was thinking to myself at the time, it's like, are there really that many protesters and boycotters of Israel? Why? Like, I wouldn't even think to ever do that. But then 4 years later, a war breaks out. They start killing tens of thousands of women and children. It's like, well, now people have a reason to boycott. Oh, what do you know? They passed laws 4 years prior that says that you can't do that if you work in specific areas. So the same way Donald Trump met with Bill Gates in 2018 about a universal flu vaccine. In 2019, Donald Trump passed it into executive order. And in 2020, COVID strikes the nation and a pharmaceutical lobbyist in charge. I'm not saying it's all planned, but it's hard. Like, you have to be an idiot, basically, not to notice this stuff. And Charlie Kirk is not an idiot. So he mentioned all this stuff. And I'm going to play the last clip one more time.
Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
I mean, I'm going to play this clip of Trump again, and I asked the question, do you think that Trump thinks that Charlie Kirk is one of those deniers? Because now I'm noticing trends. I watched the debate between the rabbi and Candace, and the rabbi, I believe in the debate, said that October 7th was like the worst event that's ever happened to anybody in human history. So it's like now it's the new, Holocaust event where it's like, if you question it at all, you're a denier. And I don't know, like, as far as like how far they're going to push this stuff. But I just noticed these patterns where Trump's like, the same people questioning October 7th are questioning that event. And he's like, like AOC and Ilhan Omar. It's like, you mean like Charlie Kirk, your boy Charlie, who had questions as well. I'm going to play that clip again of Trump, and then we'll move forward.
Here's the thing. You watch these people on television, and then just like you have Holocaust deniers also. They say the Holocaust never took. It's the exact same people. They're saying it never happened. AOC +3.
Yeah, and Charlie Kirk.
Was there a stand down order? 6 hours?
I'm not saying he's a denier, but I'm just saying, like, the dishonesty from Trump to be like, it's liberals that are questioning it. It's like, and a lot of your fan base and also has questions as well. Before I play the next clip, I just want to say this. There's probably, and I don't know a politically correct way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I don't think there's anything more illegal in this world, and there's nothing more heavily censored and policed in this world than Jewish history. You could question Mao Zedong, you could question anything. You could say the founding fathers were black and they were rapists, and you could say whatever you want, but there's one event that you go to jail in a lot of countries for questioning. There, and then Trump saying like this event's now like that event, and it's like, I don't think it makes, this is just my personal opinion. I know most people don't care, but it doesn't make people trust you more when you heavily censor and police anybody who asks any questions about anything. Like, I believe personally that it's just made more people question certain stuff, and I'm not justifying it, but as far as like history, like, people have questions about everything. There's multiple theories about America. There's multiple theories about the founding fathers. Some people think they were awesome. Some people think they were Christians. Some people think they were Freemasons and they sucked and they, trapped us. And some people think they made the greatest nation ever. Some people think they committed a genocide against Native Americans. But in America, you're allowed to basically say whatever you want and think about it. And in multiple countries, you will literally end up in prison if you question one event in World War II. So I think a lot of people have noticed that it's one of the most heavily policed things in the world. And if you go to the anti-Semitism speech laws that are being passed all across America, one of the laws is that you can't question that event. And, they brag on the State Department website that in certain places in the world, it's actually criminal. So the State Department of America is like, yeah, it's not illegal yet in America to send you to jail, but, in other parts of the world, you can go to jail for that. So we're excited about that. And so much so we're going to put it on the website. Like, it's hard not to notice that stuff. It doesn't matter where you're from or what religion or race you are. Like, it's just so right there in front of your face that this is just my personal opinion. Like Noam Chomsky and many free speech advocates in the past, if you don't give free speech for those you disagree with and those you hate the most, then you don't actually believe in free speech. So it's easy to give free speech to people that you like and agree with, but it's not true free speech. If you could say whatever you want, but you can't question the pharmaceutical industry and their vaccine, it's not free speech. It's like big pharma now controls the policy of what is and what isn't allowed to be said, and they're going to manipulate it for their benefit. So, this is a topic that most won't touch because it's a scary topic to touch, because just like in anything in this world, you're always going to get falsely labeled. Like if you criticize BLM, they'll call you a racist. If you say that the history of the civil rights era isn't what they taught you in school, which is what Malcolm X said and a lot of intellectuals have said, they'll call you a racist and they'll say you hate people. So, everybody's kind of nervous to talk about any events like this. And I'm sure Charlie Kirk was nervous to even say that on a podcast. And I'm sure he had a talking to because, but what he said is what a lot of people said, including like Israelis. I think they're like confused at how long it lasted. And it's like, you could shoot down like super missiles at like super high speeds. But as far as paragliders got through the barrier, and I think a lot of people are disappointed at the security of their country. But as Charlie Kirk said, it ended the protests that they had there. And I'm going to play another clip because it's interesting later. Sean Hannity and Donald Trump, they mentioned that Chuck Schumer wants to have an election in Israel. And they're like, how dare him have an election during war? And I want people to pay attention to this, because if Ukraine and Zelensky can essentially cancel elections and become a dictator during a war, and they're our great ally, and we call Ukraine a democracy. If Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East, and you have Republicans who pretend to want fair elections and free elections, and they complain about elections all the time, they're scoffing off the fact that people want an election in a country because there's a war. What's going to stop them in America from canceling an election and saying, how dare Republicans want an election? We're at war right now. We can't have an election during war. And if you can't have an election during war, what's going to stop a dictator from starting a war? Because that war keeps them in office. These are things people have to think about. And I think that there's so much theater around Hunter Biden shooting guns and smoking crack and hanging out with hookers and Donald Trump and the court cases. It creates this perfect false paradigm where everybody's following this like television show like it's a Netflix movie. And the reality is there's a huge narrative going on that's even bigger than Trump and Biden that most people don't talk about, because the people that they listen to are either too unsophisticated, or they're too compromised, or they're just basic, where everyone's like, oh, I don't care about that now. It's like, that's what I'm thinking the whole time. I'm like, if Ukraine's going to cancel an election because of a war, if now Republicans, including Trump and Sean Hannity, are saying, how dare Democrats want to have an election in Israel? They're at war. What's going to stop Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from using that same logic in America? Because that's a democracy over there, according to you guys. Let's take a clip. Let's watch a clip of Donald Trump saying that Israel needs more power in America. The Israel lobby just doesn't have enough power, and Donald Trump is running to give them more power. Let's watch the clip.
Israel was the most powerful lobby in the country 15 years ago. Today, between Tlaib and AOC and all of these people, what they're doing, Israel, they don't have the backing that they once had.
You'll give it to them.
Yeah, I'm good. But they don't have the backing.
So here Trump is pretty much pathologically lying. He's trying to say that the Israel lobby doesn't have that much support. I completely disagree. I think when there's Israel bills, it passes almost unanimously every time. And Thomas Massie is like the only one who votes against it. Here's another clip that I've played before, but Donald Trump, he thinks that Israel should literally own American Congress. Not Americans, not people that have loyalty to this country. A foreign country should own your Congress. And this is who Trump is. This is why I think he's fake opposition, because he's not even hiding what he thinks should happen. Me personally, I think Israel should control their Congress, and I think America should control our Congress. I know it's a controversial idea. I think China should control China's government. America should control America's government. and Israel should control Israel's government. I know that's really like hateful and controversial because most of the Republican Party thinks that a foreign country should control America. So I don't know. I'm sorry for being so controversial and thinking our country should run our country. I know everyone else can do it in the world, but if we do it, it's hate speech. And then Trump and DeSantis pass hate speech laws to say that you're so bad for thinking that.
It's not an exaggeration.
Oh, hold on a second. Here's the clip.
You know, the biggest change I've seen in Congress is Israel literally owned Congress. You understand that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was so powerful. And we're not talking about over a very long period of time, but I think you know exactly what I'm saying. They had such power. Israel had such power, and rightfully, over Congress.
Israel still has massive power in Congress. Israel still has huge reach in the media. But Trump is trying to paint this picture like they just don't have enough and they need more. This reminds me, one thing before I play the next clip, it reminds me of when he was talking about COVID and people didn't realize it because when you get the left versus right and Trump versus the deep state, like you stop paying attention and your brain turns into mush. But one of the dumbest talking points I remember that Trump used to talk about that was so stupid. He used to be like, I did such a good job during COVID and Obama did such a bad job during swine flu. I crushed COVID and Obama just blew it with swine flu. And I kept thinking to myself, which idiot scriptwriter or like advisor told you to say that? Because with swine flu, the country wasn't locked down. During COVID, the country was locked down. We printed $7 trillion and fast-tracked an mRNA quote-unquote vaccine, which now one of the courts says is not even a vaccine. But they had to call it a quote-unquote vaccine because then it's protected by the PrEP Act, so they have liability shields. I saw through that the entire time. Don't feel like talking about it. I have 100 videos on it. But in general, it's like that's how dumb politics is. He'll be like, I crushed like you didn't do a good job during COVID. And even though I don't like Obama, if there's no lockdown and like fast-tracked vaccine stuff, like then that's just by default better because the country was just going as normal. But, you know, he gaslights so much where people don't realize it. Like DeSantis didn't do that good of a job in Florida. It's just the sunny weather that makes it good. And it's like California disproves that. I did better than swine flu. Not really. And then it's like Israel has no power in Congress. It's like that's the furthest thing from the truth. It's like embarrassing that anybody believes it. And then he goes on to say Chuck Schumer, who is an American Democratic Jewish man, he says that he's basically a Palestinian because he wants a democracy to have an election during war. I mean, this is like so embarrassing that this is the opposition to the Democrats. This is why I don't really care that much. Vote for Trump, vote Republican. But, you know, until people realize this angle of stuff, then it's all just like going nowhere, in my view. So let's watch the clip.
Even Schumer has become like a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer, Jewish, always strong for Israel. He's become like a Palestinian.
Called for elections in the middle of a war.
Yeah, it's a very bad thing.
He called for elections in the middle of a war. So what a lot of conservatives, especially most conservatives under like 30 understand this, under 40 understand this. Conservatives over 60, I think it's, no offense, it's too late for them to figure this stuff out. Like they're just like brainwashed by Zionism. But in general, it's like if it's the same thing as Ukraine, where it's like we give hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. Most Republicans are like, stop doing that. You know, Zelensky uses a war as an emergency to make himself a dictator so they can't have an election. And everyone says, that's crazy. Zelensky's a dictator. He's using a war in order to keep himself in power. And everybody understands that in the Republican Party. You give them Israel, which was having massive protests a week before the attack, and people were noticing that Netanyahu was changing the constitution of Israel, which was spurring a lot of Israelis to protest in the streets. And then all of a sudden, it's like they're getting hundreds of billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars, soon to be hundreds of billions of dollars. And then Netanyahu is using that emergency power as a way to not have any election. And then Sean Hannity and Donald Trump, the fake opposition, are like, how dare Democrats want an election? You know, that makes them a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer is not a Palestinian. He's an American Democrat Jewish guy. He's not Palestinian. He's not pro-Palestine. It's like the left is super pro-Israel. The right is like psychotically pro-Israel. And then the right tries to act like the left is Palestine because they want to give them like $30 billion instead of $60 billion. Or they want to, you know, let them kill thousands of people instead of tens of thousands. It's like this is the games that they play. And it's like Chuck Schumer is in no way, shape, or form pro-Palestine. I'm sure. I can't really tell you what his agenda is, but just like a lot of people in Israel, I'm guessing that they're not thrilled with the leadership. Like, it's just, they say that October 7th is similar to 9/11, and it is in many ways. It justifies more war. It basically silences all opposition of the war, and they call you a terrorist if you disagree with what they're doing. And then they use it to do other stuff. And then they say that you're not allowed to disagree with the other stuff that they're doing. But as an American citizen, 9/11 was horrific, and I'm not a denier of 9/11. But after 9/11, we ended up in like 5, 6 different countries, and it didn't help America. It didn't help our bank account. It didn't help our soldiers. It didn't help our standing in the world. It didn't make us more safe. I would say we're less safe now than we've ever been. Our country is falling apart. People are getting robbed all the time. And, it doesn't mean I'm with the other side. It's just like, I know they're using that event to justify other events that don't benefit our interests. So that's what a lot of people are thinking in Israel. It's only like the fringe, I wouldn't even say the fringe, but like the evangelical Zionist Republicans and the donor class that is like, no, we got to do more and more and more. Like, you can do all that, but it doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean it's going to benefit. And it's okay for people in America or in Israel to be like, you know what? Yeah, I want to release the hostages, and yeah, I want to get people back. But at the same time, like, I feel like we're screwing ourselves with what we're doing. And I feel like we're doing more damage. Like 9/11 happened, but it doesn't mean that everything that America did after 9/11 was good. You could say it's justified, but it didn't work really, in my opinion. So, that's the games that they're playing here. And I just want to play that clip again because Trump is like, this is like the left and the right. The left lies, then the right lies, and then people just assume that one of them's telling the truth because the other one's not. But this interview is like riddled with just total gaslighting. Like, Israel doesn't have enough power in Congress. They have the most. They have so much power. It's ridiculous. Like, you get absolutely slandered in America if you're America first. It's like impossible to, like, Thomas Massey is the only one who can successfully keep winning. Everyone else is like scared to even say anything. And then he calls a Jewish Democrat a Palestinian because they want an election in a democracy. Like, people don't see how crazy this is. So stupid. Play the clip and then we'll keep it moving.
Even Schumer has become like a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer, Jewish, always strong for Israel. He's become like a Palestinian.
Called for elections in the middle of a war.
Yeah, it's a very bad thing. It's a very sad thing, and it's a very dangerous thing. But if you look, so many people, I watch.
All right, I'm gonna play one more clip, then we'll wrap it up. Read a few, and then I'm gonna keep this one kind of short.
On your show, where they're going and interviewing these people that are protesting just recently at Columbia and the different places, they say, we don't believe October 7th ever happened. And they may believe that, they may actually believe that, but they have to get the job done. They have to get in there and they have to get it done.
So, yeah, I just wanted to cover that. I thought it was interesting. And I think someone said this douchebag and the wife beater thinks he knows more than Trump. Here's what I'll say. I do news analysis. I didn't take money from Pfizer. I didn't take $100 million from a casino owner in order to sell out my cabinet. I'm not a politician. If I took money, I would do different stuff. But because I don't take money from people, I'm allowed to tell you the truth. It's not that I know better than Trump. I know what Trump's doing. Trump knows what Trump's doing. You just don't know what he's doing. So if you want to learn and listen, you could listen and learn what's going on. It's like if a salesman sells insurance and you're like, oh, you think you know better than the insurance salesman? It's not a competition of who knows more. It's just, I know what they're doing. They're selling insurance. Their job is to sell it to you. A politician is like a professional political prostitute. When Trump brags about the vaccine in an interview, he's not talking to you. He knows that you might not agree with him. He knows that 90% of his base doesn't want to hear it. But why does he keep saying it? This is ready. I'll solve something that most analysts pretend like they're too dumb to figure out, or maybe they are too dumb to figure out. I don't know. But they'll be like, why does Trump keep bragging about the vaccine? Why does he keep saying it's the greatest medical achievement? What's he doing? I don't understand. His base doesn't like it. He doesn't care what his base likes because he knows his base is subservient. He's doing that for the donors. Big pharma and the pharmaceutical industry has a lot of money. They have a lot of power. They're a multi-billion-dollar industry. They've given him millions of dollars for his campaigns. He's hired pharmaceutical lobbyists in exchange for donor money. He's sold his cabinet out to that industry. So when he says that stuff and you're like, I don't like it, he doesn't care that you don't like it. He's not talking to you. He's talking to the donors. So with that speech, he's talking to some of his supporters, pro-Israel supporters, people that are Israeli, people that are evangelical Zionists that have been told that that's the way to be a Christian for 50 years. He's talking to those people, but for the most part, in that interview, he's talking to the donors because Miriam Adelson gave him $100 million. There's a bunch of donors. I think I'm trying to think of the guy's name, but he was like a liberal college donor that's pro-Israel, and now he's dumping a bunch of money into Trump. Trump gets more money from Israel First donors than most people will ever see in their lifetime. Like Trump has received more money from one donor than you'll ever make in your whole life. $100 million. Unless any of you have made $100 million. I've not even come close. That's how much money he's getting from one donor who has specifically stated she wants Trump to do things for Israel. That's why he's saying this stuff. I'm just letting you know. It's not like I know more than him. I know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. You just don't know. So this show is about learning and listening and considering and not being stupid. So that's the whole point of me talking about it. Yeah, I know the big money and the big influence wants to hear that stuff. So he'll say it. And I'll just say this as well. When Trump and DeSantis, they all passed the same anti-Semitism speech bills. They're not writing these bills. DeSantis and Trump don't sit down and they're like, what is anti-Semitism? Let's define it. They're receiving the definition from organizations, probably from donors in some extent. And it's like, here's the definition of anti-Semitism. It's called the IHRA definition. It's extremely broad. It's totally anti-First Amendment, but you pay off Trump and DeSantis and they pass the speech law and people can't figure out that both parties are doing it. And then they'll be like, you're just being hateful or whatever. So at this point, I'm talking to people that want to listen. The people that don't, I don't really care. And I'm not trying to like shift the sands of time. Like that's how politics works. This election is between two 80-year-olds who are just sucking up donor money. People don't realize that. So, the country will do what it does. Like, if Trump wins, we'll see how he finesses the situation. So I'm just making this video as an informative video. That's my reaction to it. And I want to say this real quick, and then I'll read a few comments because I was talking to my buddy who's Christian the other day, and we were going over certain Bible verses, and I'm not going to say the exact one because I didn't memorize it, but it was talking about how if your nation, and this is, if you're not Christian, then this means nothing to you. If you are Christian, it's interesting. And even if you're not Christian, I still think this is interesting because most Republicans say that they are, right? When you read certain parts of the Bible, it says that nations will be cursed if they stray from God. And it even says the nations that people think they have to worship will also fall if they fall from God and they fall from his word and they fall from morality. No one is above God. That's not Christianity. There's not a group of people that's above God and they could just reject it. No one's above God. Not me, not you, not anybody, right? So it says like if the nations like stray, they will fail. Okay. And then what does it say about women? If you read the Bible, it says that women shouldn't have leadership roles. Women shouldn't be talking so much. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to say the exact definition, but the Bible said it was man, it was God, man, and woman. Not to say that women are worse, but women are just different. Women are supposed to, lean into their feminine, and males are supposed to lean into their masculine. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you to not be a CEO. I'm not telling you to not be a strong, independent woman. It's not up to me. I don't care. I'm not God. I didn't write the Bible. I'm just saying biblically, it says all of these things, and America is so far from the Bible. 99% of Republicans, they do not follow that scripture. Their wives are running the household. Women are in politics. They're in leadership positions. They're talking at conferences. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying that's what the Bible says. So I just find it crazy that tens of millions of people that call themselves Christians, they think that their country deserves to be not cursed and it deserves to be better just because they want it. This is the easiest analogy that I can choose. Imagine if I was 350 pounds and my buddy comes up to me and says, dude, the only way that you're going to be fit is you have to lose weight, work out, and exercise, and then you could be in good shape. But it's going to take dedication, it's going to take discipline, and then you could be fit again. And I just said, oh, you're just being hateful. Oh, you're just Joe Biden. Oh, you just don't like me. Oh, you're just pessimistic. It's like, no, that's the truth. That's the path to getting fit. You understand? In America, you have the Democrats that are ruining everything. They don't know how to run a city. Nothing matters to them. They don't understand basic like reality. They don't understand how cities and nations work. And it's obvious that the left doesn't know what they're doing. Okay, so who's the opposition to the left? It's the right. And the right acts like a bunch of drunk sports fans that just idol worship Donald Trump, and they think they deserve a good nation because they want a nation. And they think obsessing over a politician means they deserve a good nation. And I've come to the conclusion that America is going to continue to be cursed until you address the real issues. And if you don't address them, it's just so disgusting to me that people think they deserve a good nation because they just want it. They want it, but they're not willing to do the work. They want it, but they're not willing to address the issues. So, if you're not a Christian, then you don't believe what it says. But if you are a Christian, what part of America, why do you think God is going to bless America when we're doing so many wicked things domestically and abroad? Like, he's not going to, and it's not going to fix anything. So that's kind of how I see all of this stuff. It's like Republicans are basically just like socialist liberals that go to Coachella or go to Stagecoach instead of Coachella. I've said it a few times because I think it's one of my best analogies I've ever come up with. Coachella is an event where you go to Palm Springs for a weekend and you listen to rap and EDM music and you get wasted and chicks are there and everyone's doing drugs. I'm not knocking it. I like shows. I'm just saying, like, that's what it is. And then the next weekend, it's called Stagecoach. And everyone does the same thing, except they wear cowboy hats and they drink and they listen to country music. It's the same degeneracy. It's just different genres of music. And I'm not acting holier than thou, but that's what politics is. Like Stagecoach and Coachella, they're not that different. The Democrats and Republicans are not that different. The Republicans are basically socialist liberals that just want to idol worship a politician like it's a football team. And they think they are going to get results because they want results. They think they deserve a good nation and they deserve a border and they deserve a crime-free city because they want it, but they're not willing to analyze why it's not the right way. Yes, Democrats suck. That's part of it. Liberalism is dumb in the modern era. Like, that's part of it, but it's not the whole way. Like, so that's just I don't care that much anymore. Like when people yell in the comment section and stuff, it reminds me of like a little baby. You know what I'm saying? It's like you tell a baby to stop scribbling on the wall and they just go, eh. Like that's like 60-year-old grown men and that like obsess over Donald Trump. Vote for him. I think he's the better option. Support him. I think he's more authentic than Joe Biden. I think he's funnier than Joe Biden. He's slightly younger than Joe Biden. He's more alive than Joe Biden. He's, like Trump is a dice roll. Like there's something there that might happen for sure. But as far as a man, it would be like being 300 pounds and being like, I don't have to exercise or lose weight in order to get fit. Like you actually do though. And in America, if you are a Christian, if you're not, this means nothing to you. The Republican movement is straying so far from the Bible. Like you're basically just liberals from 5 years ago. Men that are conservative from 50 years ago, they'd look at you like you're a transgender leftist. Like that's how crazy you guys are, but you don't realize it because as the left goes further and further from reality, the right is just tiptoeing next to them and they think they deserve all these things just because they're not the other side. But the truth is, like, you don't actually deserve anything. And I don't believe you're going to get it until we get back to a point of somewhat morality and logic and reason and a godly thought process. And I'm not perfect. I'm not telling women or men what to do. It's just like I just don't think wanting things means you're going to get them. And that's why I don't really have much in common with most Republican culture at the moment, because I don't see it. I see it almost as just like it's like a Kid Rock concert at this point. And I love concerts. I like music. I like hanging out. I like to drink alcohol sometimes. I'm not an alcoholic, but like, I'm not just like sitting here. I'm not acting holier than thou. It's just, I do analysis. I analyze things, and I don't think the Republican Party wants to face these issues. And when it comes from And when it comes to lobbying in Washington, like the Israel lobby has a lot of power. Donald Trump takes a lot of money from them. He wants to give them more power. And I personally, and this is no disrespect to any country, China, Saudi Arabia, Israel should control their politics. Saudi Arabia should control their politics, and America should control their politics. The fact that Republicans are running on the premise of handing a foreign country America's Congress is alarming to me. And it's not, I wouldn't even say it's alarming, because I've known how things work for a long time now. And I think it's all theater until people figure out these elements of it. Who's paying the politicians? Why are they paying them? And what are they getting in return for them? I don't believe that all these politicians are thinking of these things on their own. They're getting handed bills, they're getting handed agendas, and then they just follow them. And they trick you into thinking that they're so different. That's my opinion. That's why I did this video. I'll read a few comments and then we'll keep it moving. Someone said, Trump promises to start a war with Iran for Israel and is even worse on Israel. Jill Stein is a non-vote. Yeah, but Jill Stein's not going to win, so it doesn't matter. But we'll see what Trump's going to do. I do think that Trump, he doesn't want war, but he also, he doesn't have a lot of conviction. Like Trump, I don't think he wants war. I don't think he wants this to happen. But I also don't, it seems like he's a businessman. So like he'll go where the money is. Like, I don't think he believes in like pharmaceutical products that much, but he takes enough money from them and they have a lot of power. He does business with them. So, one of the good and bad things about Trump is I don't think he really he doesn't really have conviction. It can be bad and good. He could change his mind quickly, but also, I think personally, like a righteous man has conviction. I don't think Trump is really like a righteous man. I think he's like he's like a people pleaser to some extent, and he's like just like a politician. But it's a difficult job. I wouldn't want to be him. Like to be where he's at in the spotlight, all attention on him. It's not easy. I'm sure it's fun to do rallies and stuff, but I do not envy his position. It's very difficult. Let's see. But be on the lookout. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Be on the lookout for them canceling the election in America. Because if they say Ukraine and Israel is a democracy and both parties are fine with canceling the elections, they're so, you almost, and I'm not trying to like be a shill, but you almost have to think at a certain point that the average person is actually dumber than the elites. Because like the way the elites work is actually really smart. And I notice it, but I feel like a lot of people don't. Like during COVID, you got to admit, even though they totally like scammed everybody, it was high IQ, high level stuff. Like, oh my gosh, 15 days. Oh, we just need a little bit more. Oh, look, the left's coming after us. Oh my gosh, trust the plan. Like all these things going on. And people are like, yeah, we got to beat the left with the vaccine. It's like, they know what they're doing. Like they completely bamboozled humanity, and humanity still doesn't know what hit them. So when it comes to this sort of stuff, it's like the left, everything the left thinks about Ukraine, the right thinks about Israel. It's like they gave the left Ukraine, they gave the right Israel, and the left will be like, Ukraine's so much different than Israel. I don't believe in the war in Israel. You're like, cool. What about Ukraine? They're like, well, we got to fight Putin. It's like, we do? Yeah. Why? Because you believe propaganda for the last 7 years from Democrat media that, lined you up to think that way. And then you get to Republicans and they're like, yeah, Zelensky's a dictator. Okay. Yeah, Zelensky's taking too much of our money. Okay. Yeah, who cares about that war? Okay. What about Israel? We have to fund them. And the Republicans have been brainwashed for 50 years. So they're even crazier about that topic. So it's like neither side wants to admit that they got bamboozled. And the Zelensky and Netanyahu, they're doing the same stuff. They're using a war emergency to not have an election. They're taking tens and hundreds of billions of dollars of American taxpayer money. They're using them to fight wars that then reflect on us. It's the same thing, but both sides can't see it, which that's why I don't even get that mad anymore. It's like, maybe people are too dumb. Maybe the elites really are smarter than you. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you really are cattle. I don't think you are, but if you act like cattle and just moo all the time, then they have no reason to treat you better. Like you got to demand respect, not things are not just given to you. It's like, I want a good country. Yeah. And I want $10 billion to just be sitting on the floor so I never have to make a video again. But that's not how the world works. Like you don't just get things because you want them. But that's Republicans. They just want all these things. Like it's so gross. Like, I want it. Why do you deserve it? Because I like Trump. you don't deserve it just because you like a guy. That's not how the world works. Dolores said, thank you so much for the $50 super chat. Appreciate you. She said, I learned a lot with your podcast. God bless you. Thank you so much, Dolores. I appreciate you. And that's what I want to do. Like, and I want to say this as well. When I listen to a lot of other podcasts, like I see what else is out there, they're dumbing people down. Like I believe Rachel Maddow is dumbing down her audience. 5 years of Rachel Maddow, you're dumber than you bet be better off listening to Taylor Swift podcast or whatever. Like I'm not even being a dick. I'm just saying like you're better off just watching sports. Like listening to Rachel Maddow for 5 years, you're like I'm learning something. No, you're getting dumber. It's literally better to ignore it completely. Like I don't even think listening to politics matters that much as someone who does it. When I talk to women or something where they're like, oh, I don't know what you do, I don't listen to politics, they're like, should I? I'm like, no. Because like you don't need to be everyone doesn't need to be an activist. Every woman doesn't need a megaphone. It's like if you're focused on something that matters to you, but you want to know a little bit, but what if you paid attention to politics for 6 years and watched The View, and then you're just dumber than you were before? Like you're not helping, you're just getting dumber. And then a lot of these right-wing podcasts and Republican media, people assume just because the left is dumbing down their audience, that must mean I'm getting the counter argument. But I believe that a lot of the Republican counter argument is the false opposition. So they're dumbing down their audience too. Like I'm just going to name a few names without trying to be rude. Both of them are welcome on the show to have a chat. I doubt either of them will want to come on. Cat Turd and Benny Johnson. I don't think they're bad people. Cat Turd seems like a nice guy. Benny Johnson, I don't know. Not a huge fan, but I'm sure if we had a beer and hung out, we'd get along. He seems pretty cool or whatever. But I'm not trying to hate on them as people. I'm not trying to get personal or anything. But I believe that people like Cat Turd and Benny Johnson, they've dumbed down Republicans to the same extent that Rachel Maddow has dumbed down liberals. Like I think they've made people stupider with their simplistic, basic content. People like Sean Hannity, Dan Bongino, Fox News. I don't dislike them. I'm sure me and Dan would get along, and he says some interesting stuff sometimes. I'm not against everything he's ever said, but I think he's dumbed a lot of people down because the talking points, the narrative, the left versus right, the constant, it's Trump versus the world, it's just making people dumber. Vote for Trump. He's the better option if you think he is. I think he is to some extent. But that's not really what's going on. That's not really how politics works. That's not really why he didn't do what you thought he'd do. Like they never tell you what's really going on. So it just keeps you in this constant cycle. But being in a constant cycle is good for money. It's like, oh, we got to beat the deep state by selling Trump t-shirts. It's like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like it's this constant like Tom and Jerry rat race that never ends. And it's just great for business. It's like a Game of Thrones season 10,000 where you just want to keep watching, It's not good for business to be like, nah, that's not what's going on. $10 super chat, the noticer. He said, criticizing Israel as an American right. Ron Paul literally spoke about how Israel created Hamas. Well, I think the First Amendment's the First Amendment. And, Ron Paul and others have mentioned, I don't know about the creation of it, but I will say it seems like a common thing that I've seen. I haven't researched it enough to be specific, but it seems like whenever Hamas was elected in 2004, 2005, or around then, I think it was before Obama, there wasn't going to be an election. And it was the West and Israel and America and our allies that forced Palestine to have an election. And we were like, you need to have a democracy. You need to have an election. And in that election, Hamas won the election. So, that's from my research. That's what I believe, where they kind of intervened in Palestinian politics to force an election where people picked Hamas 20 years ago by a small margin. And now they're like, well, we can blow up 17-year-olds because they voted for Hamas. It's like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, with the forcing of, Western powers forcing them into an election. Ron Paul would know better about that topic than me because he's probably been around. Well, he has been around for decades and researched it more, but I've definitely seen some of that stuff. But that's the difficult topic. It's hard to talk about because then they'll falsely frame you as like a denier or you're that or this like that. But here's the positive part. The labels are not working anymore. People don't believe the labels. Like far right, it used to hit so hard. Remember in like 2017, they're like, you're far right. And you're like, now it's like, what do you mean? You're far wrong. Okay, I'm right, you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my counter. It's like, you're so far right. You're so far wrong. I don't know. Left, right, libertarian, Republican, Christian, call it what you want. I'm like, you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? You could lie about whatever you want or call it this or that. Like, what do you even mean by far right? Do you mean like anarchy and libertarianism? Do you mean Christian nationalism? Like, what do you even mean? No one knows what you mean. You're not saying what you mean. I don't care until you speak words that make sense. It means nothing to me. And same with all of the labels like racist, sexist, xenophobic, anti-Semitic. People don't care anymore because those labels have been overused, abused. And, the over policing of speech has led people back to like the 2000 era of making edgier jokes and, saying words like words I'm not going to say here. But, like people are tired of it, of being called names for saying words. Patricia Gross, that's so gross. Patricia said, I used to like listening to you, but now I don't think I'll tune in anymore. Okay, Miss Gross. I wouldn't say you're not gross. You are gross, but why? What part bothered you? Let me know, Patricia. Did your boomer brain explode when I told you the truth? Do you need to go back to like Bon Jovi songs and like Dan Bongino? What part bothered you in this speech? Too much information? Might have knocked your IQ up a couple points. You want to slap it back down? Let me know. I'm just curious. I'm not upset with you. I'm just riffing off of it like a comedian. Yeah, I'm excited to hear what part of today's episode bothered you. It's exciting for me. Got to get my thrill some way. Someone said you have a unique perspective. Well, yeah, I mean, I just want to hear what they say. A lot of people, they just want like hoorah rah. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they want. So they get upset where like they'll tune into somebody and be like, did you hear Hunter Biden smoked crack and Steve Bannon's getting persecuted by the deep state? And they're like, oh my gosh, Steve Bannon, I gotta buy a new America shirt. I gotta buy a Trump shirt. Oh my gosh, I gotta give my money to him. Yeah, that's what they want. And it's like, yeah, you can get that. It's just that's not the show I do. You would think people would be like, oh, there's 1,000 people who do the same thing every day. And then Anomaly has like something unique that I've never heard. I'm glad I learned something, but they're like learning new information. No, get it out of my head. Fill my head with like, basic Team Red content. Anyway, I don't know if she answered. Someone said Bon Jovi rocks. I'm Gen X. There's nothing wrong with Bon Jovi. I'm just saying it's an easier swallow. Living on a prayer. Take my hand, I'll make it, I swear. Whoa, buy another Trump shirt. Trump got a mug shot. Boomers watching Fox News and they love it, and then it's like, oh my gosh, Trump got a mugshot. I need to throw my money at him. And you're like, yeah, for sure. Someone said this lady next to me has odor. I'm telling her as she's watching me. Well, that's got to be awkward for her. You're telling a lady she stinks while you're watching the show. Listen, everyone does their own thing with this show. You got to love it. You're like, whoa, another Trump mugshot. Take my money and take Miriam Adelson's money. Whoa, living on a prayer. It's just like the never-ending donor show. It's like, oh my gosh, the left got me. Oh no, I raised $300 million. Darn it. Oh no. Wow, this sucks. It's pretty funny. But yeah, no, like donate to who you want to. I don't care. I just think it's hilarious. And then it's like, you already know it's all going to happen. And then people are like, oh, the left really made a bad mistake this time. They had no idea Trump was going to raise $500 million off it. You're like, they had no idea. You think the left and the Democrats and the deep state and the swamp, they're smart enough to infiltrate both parties. They're smart enough to infiltrate every corporation. They're smart enough to control Fox News and CNN. They're smart enough to trick people into a lockdown. They're smart enough to, create the Wuhan flu. You believe that the deep state and the Democrats and the left and the Uniparty is like so smart that they're able to control like 95% of Congress, except for the Trumpers. But they just had no idea that narrative would fundraise? No idea. And if you get ads from left wingers and right wingers, they both fundraise off the same topics. When Trump gets arrested, it's like, oh, Trump's a criminal, donate to Ilhan Omar. And then it's like, Ilhan Omar's an anti-Semite, donate to Donald Trump. They play off of the theater in order to fundraise on both sides, but they just didn't know, right? Maybe they really had no idea. Like, or maybe they don't care, you know, like I'm leaning towards they don't care, but I just think it's funny where like some people will be like, the elites control every country in the world. They control the banks. They control, you know, the Uniparty and Dan Crenshaw, and Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell. And they did COVID in order to stop Trump's election. And you're like, yeah, they did all that. And they're like, oh, yeah, they know what they're doing. I'm like, but they didn't know that persecuting Trump was going to make him more popular and fundraise more. No, they made a grave error and Trump's going to beat him now. It's like, you know, it's like talking to a kid who's watching like Powder Puff Girls or like Pokemon. They're like, I can't believe Ash Ketchum beat, you know, Starmie in the big, you know, he beat his rival with Pikachu. You're like, yeah, anyway, bedtime. You know what I'm saying? Like tomorrow's a new episode. Like it's like grown people are like, did you see the new mugshot? You're like, yeah. Did you buy the NFT? Oh yeah, I'm scraping up my money to buy a piece of Trump's, you know, jacket for $7,000 attached to a digital NFT. You know, that's the only way we're going to beat Hunter Biden and the crack. It's like, maybe, you know, maybe that's how you beat Hunter Biden or something, but I don't, you know, I just think it's funny. I'm not even mad. I just like the narrative. Like, I remember when I was at a conference and I started asking people, like, everyone was on page with me. And then as soon as like Alvin Bragg was like, I'm arresting Donald Trump, I would like interview people at this conference, just like street interviews. And I was like, half the people like DeSantis, half the people like Trump. But when they like Trump, I was like, what reason do you like Trump over DeSantis? Right? I don't care. There are reasons to like Trump over DeSantis, but it's like, why? Every single person said the same thing. They were like, I need revenge. I was like it just reminds me of like a baby who poops their pants and they're like, I want my lollipop. And you're like, okay, you know, like grow up. But like the kid, like I'm voting for Trump. Why? Revenge. I want revenge. I want it now. It's like Veruca Salt or whatever from like, I don't care how. I want it now. I want a border. I want to end the wars. I want income tax to be removed. It's like, you're not getting any of that shit, but whatever. You know, and it's like, everyone's like, I want Trump to beat up my enemies in my head. I'm voting for him because the revenge, he needs to get revenge on the left. And like, I feel like I'm watching like a television show where the elites are like, here, dummies. And people are like, revenge. I want revenge. Like, cool, bro. And I want a new bicycle, like without paying for it. But that's not how it works. I got to pay for my bicycle. I'm not a thief. But in general, it's like, you know, like that was 9-10 people. They said the same thing. So you like Trump more than the DeSantis, like when they were running. Okay, sure. What reason? Like, what do you like about him? Well, he got arrested. Okay, so because he got arrested, you're going to now vote for him? Yeah, I was going to vote for DeSantis, but now I have to vote for Trump. Why? Well, because he got arrested. So because he got arrested, you have to vote for him. Yeah, because revenge. Trump needs to get revenge on them. I'm like, what are you, 5 years? Like, it's like, you know, you're like, oh, Thanos is going to come and, you know, the Iron Man needs to beat him up because Robert Downey Jr. is going to really crush the deep state. And it's like, you know, he's an actor, right? You know, that's all CGI. No. Iron Man's real and he's beating up Nancy Pelosi in my head. You're like, all right, well, good luck. You know, maybe that's true. Maybe they really didn't know. You know, maybe they had no idea that persecuting Trump was going to kick the other guy out of the way. Like they might have never known that, but maybe they did know. Like maybe they don't. I don't know. Someone said Trump donated his presidential salary. Yeah, it's cool. You know, that's a cool thing to do. All right, I'm gonna keep this under an hour. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Check out the stuff. I looked at the shop yesterday, and a lot of the t-shirts and sweatshirts, they're under 20 or so. I think the God is Great sweatshirts are under 17 or so. So a lot of this stuff is pretty much sold out. If you want it, get it soon because it's not going to be there for long. Dreamwear.com. Thanks for listening. I might do another show today. See how I feel. Appreciate you guys. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made